Welcome to the Traitors, a Traitors podcast. My name is David Bloomberg, and I'm your host for Season 1 of the Traitors Canada. And today is a very special episode because I am very excited to be talking to the winner of this season, the traitorous Magic Mike. And I am dressed for the occasion, even though this is an audio podcast.
Yes, you certainly are dressed for the occasion here, David. I'm loving that traitor outfit. You're taking my role right now.
That's right. Well, I won't fully take your role. You will survive through this podcast, I promise.
I hope so.
So how are you?
Oh my, I'm great. What can I say? It's surreal right now.
Well, you've known this for a while, obviously, so you've had to go around doing your normal everyday stuff and keeping this secret.
Of course, but keeping a secret is not that hard for me.
Yeah.
Being a magician also.
Good point. Good point. Now, coming into the finale, I had confidence that you would pull it off, even though the odds were against you. But it didn't go exactly like I thought. Based on last week's episode, I was certain you had Leroy in your pocket and he fully trusted you and that you would get rid of Gurleen. But then all of a sudden this week, we see you saying you needed to have Gurleen on your side. And, well, like magic, she was. So what did we miss that happened between all those scenes?
Yeah, so, it came down to it that I realized there is no way, no matter, even if I had Leroy on my side, there was no way I would be able to convince Leroy that Gurleen was a traitor. It wasn't happening. So I realized I only had one option, and Gurleen was my option. I knew Trevon and Donna would most likely be voting for me, so I needed to stick with Leroy and Gurleen. And that I kind of backed myself into a corner. So it came down to it that I knew I have to work on Gurleen and hope for the best. Leave it in her hands.
And it worked. It worked. That whole, do you think it was the Mickey clue thing that got her finally convinced?
I can't say for certain, but I did everything. I pulled every trick out of the book to try to make that work. The Mickey clue, I tried to twist it however I could. I also think it was a combination, though, of kind of like what Leroy was doing. He wasn't pushing me enough at that point. It was like he almost seemed desperate to me watching it yesterday that, maybe he was too aggressive, and that's maybe why Gurleen switched to me. I'm not sure.
Okay. How did you manage to convince Leroy and Gurleen that, to me anyway, the two most obvious faithfuls, Trevon and Donna, were potentially traitors, or did they convince themselves?
I think we were on the same page, the three of us. I think right from after that last night that we knew we're going to go for Trevon, we're going to go for Donna, and it's going to be left with the three of us at the end. But I didn't trust Leroy. I had a feeling, even if one of those people worked, they would still vote me out just to split the money between them. So, I had no option. I knew it was a 50-50 shot. But I'm surprised I pulled that magic trick off there, really.
Now, I usually do podcasts about why people win or lose reality TV. But from your standpoint, what do you think was your key moment that led you to the win?
Ooh, I don't know if I had a key moment. I think there was a lot of things I did right. At the beginning of the game, I played a more quiet game. I made what I thought were a couple of bold moves with murdering Gurpiar, calling up Melby first. To me, these seemed like bold moves at the time for a guy that wasn't saying much in the game. And then I think it was halfway through the game when I started speaking more that it really became more intensive. I started talking more, but I was never coming up with my own theories. I was riding on other people's theories and just making it a bigger thing than it was.
Well, you got called out for that a couple of times for people saying, wait a minute, you're not giving us anything. You're just deflecting or reflecting. So how did you dodge that other than, in some cases you murdered the person, in other cases,
that's easy. Yeah, exactly. You murder them. They're calling you out. They're gone the next day. If they say your name, bye bye. That's the only way I could see playing the game. And to be honest with you, David, I thought I was playing a very under the radar game. That's why I never had the intent to recruit from the start because I didn't see the benefit to me. I thought, if anything, that's going to make me a suspect. So I thought, murdering someone makes me one step closer to the end. And that's why I went that route.
Yeah, and I loved seeing that, not recruiting. I thought it was good the way you and Kuzi were working together. And when you eventually took your shot at Kuzi, it seemed on TV like you chose that moment because maybe you believed what Melissa A was saying, that Kuzi was dropping your name. Was that the case, or would you have chosen that time anyway?
So let me say this. Kuzi was a true mastermind in this game. I give her full credit. I don't even know if I would have gotten to where I got without her. I think we worked wonderfully together. We had a good dynamic. The two of us, we were just great. It's not that we spent a lot of time during the day together. We had our own groups. We were doing our own thing. But when we met at night, everything clicked. We agreed on everything. Everything was mutual. And I felt like we were on the same page. It wasn't until that point when May said and Mel A said that Kuzi said your name, why would I truly believed that. And at that point I knew it's time. I have to. If I waited another episode, she probably would have done the same to me.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, weighing the pros and cons, because then you had to blackmail, whereas if you had waited another episode, you wouldn't have had to, but you had a, nice, easy, well, nothing's ever easy, but an easier target in Mickey, it seemed.
That's right. And it's even with Mickey, I felt like I had no other option at that point in the game. I'm not going to recruit the two people that just called my name out at the round table, Donna or Trevon. And obviously, Gerline and Leroy, they were ride or die together. So who was my option? I had Mickey. So right. I went with, and I knew Mickey trusted, like we had a really great bond together. And he was the one guy I trusted in the game.
All right. Well, going back to the very beginning, did you come in wanting to be a traitor?
Yeah, I think so. I thought I would have played it well. I thought it would have been a challenge. Obviously, I'm a magician. I'm used to lying, deceiving, manipulating, but not in this way. So this truly was a challenge, right? I'm used to being on stage. I'm not used to, backstabbing people under these kind of circumstances. And even hearing my name at the round table, made me so nervous. I wasn't built for this. That's how I felt.
Through close-up magic with them examining your every move.
Exactly. And I felt like, even when I did that trick at the beginning of the show, it made me less of a threat because they see, oh, wow, this guy knows some card tricks. Cool. He's a magician, but he's not a threat.
Right. Well, what do you think you would have done if you were faithful instead? How would you have played it?
So I think if you're going to play this game as a faithful, it's first off a completely different game than what being a traitor. I think, you have to try and figure out who the traitors are and try to align yourself with them. I don't think it's about voting them off necessarily. I think it's about trying to take them get as far as you can in the game so you don't get murdered. So it's a completely different game strategy as a faithful.
Yeah, and there were some people who were saying, looking at and, no negativity towards some of your fellow players, but that a couple of the people who made it close to the end were not the greatest, in terms of figuring things out. And so was that obviously part of your strategy, bring along the people who, were always voting the wrong way?
Well, yes and no. I mean, at the end of the game, it was pretty much all the quiet people there, the people that never really said much. So, everyone who had things to say were either murdered or banished. And it's just kind of the way it worked out. Trevon had great reads on me by the end of the game, but he was just never aligned at the right time. So no one trusted him anymore. He didn't have a voice because of that, even though he was bang on about everything.
The boy who cried wolf, by the whatever seventh, eighth time, they no longer believe it.
That is the perfect analogy right there. Yes.
Who were you trying to purposely keep around as shields? Was it Leroy and Gurleen? Were they acting as shields, or was it just because you worked well together?
I think we halfway through the game built a good bond together. Myself, Gurleen, Leroy, Mickey was great. But I never thought I had, to be honest with you, from the start of the game, I never feared being banished. I really did feel like I was playing an under the radar game. And, watching it now and seeing all the people that were talking about me behind my back, I think I would have been so paranoid if I would have known all of this was happening. I may have played a completely different game, but I truly did feel like, I was flying low under the radar.
Well, and I guess that's the question. So do you just let the people out front stay out front and stand back? Let the Kevins be the Kevins, let the Koozies be the Koozies, and just stand back and let it happen? Or did you purposely prop anyone up?
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning of the game, when there's so many people, let them do the talking. They're going to get themselves into trouble. That's the way I saw it. And then I would say about halfway through the game, that's when you have to start as a trader, kind of manipulating and directing the way the game is going to be played and the direction you want to take it. And you truly do have to be one step ahead all the time, and kind of know what your next move is or have an idea. But things change. There were so many twists in the show, and it's hard to. Every day is different. You have to kind of go day by day.
Yeah, speaking of one of the twists that we certainly didn't see coming at the final five, when they had Travon leave without revealing that he was a faithful. Did you feel it helped you, hurt you, or was pretty neutral?
I think it was neutral because to me at that point in the game, I knew it. If I had any chance, Gurleen and I would have to be the final two standing at the end, without a doubt. So, I think it was a neutral thing. I don't think it hurt me in any way. I think if anything, it could help, but I don't think any of us really thought Travon was the traitor at that point. So I knew it was going to be the pick between either myself or Leroy.
So can you expand on that? Because I think I know what you're saying here, but a lot of people are still of the thought process, counter to what you said a few minutes ago, that the idea of the game is to take out the traitors. When really the idea, well, as a faithful, when really the idea of the game is to get to the end and then get rid of the traitors. But so was it basically that Gurleen and Leroy, I mean, you, of course, but Gurleen and Leroy especially, was it really what we saw in the scene last week? They didn't care if Donna and Travon were faithful or traitors. They just wanted to get rid of them so they didn't have to split the money with them.
I think so. I think it would have worked that way anyways if I wasn't there. Assuming it was four faithfuls at the end, Gurleen and Leroy would have been the ones taking the money home. However, I didn't feel like I had any other option at that point in the game. My only option was to get in Gurleen's head and do everything I could to maneuver myself in that moment.
Yeah, it was just interesting. Like I said, the difference between episode 9 and episode 10, like it focused so much in episode 9 on Leroy and then whoop, flip, and the magic of editing, a little bit different magic than you.
Yeah. And Leroy and we got along great. It's just I knew like I had no chance with him if you were going to win the two options. So
now going back to the theme that went through this whole season, when Koozie wanted to murder someone from her own team in the airport task, the theory that would never die because it was true. Did you realize at that time it would or could end up pointing at her later because of the shield situation?
You know what? At that point in the game, there were too many of us. I think there were 7 players on that team. So I never really thought that far in advance. But I did, after a couple people were eliminated from that team, yes, I knew, wow, this is going to definitely be something that could come back and haunt Koozie. But, the same things happened with me with the murders. I murdered a lot of people that said my name and then they were gone the next day. So, it all comes down to the faithfuls have to align at the right time to get the right person out. But, if one person is saying this, the other person's saying that, it's hard to, and it seemed like I slipped through the cracks at times.
Yeah, I did like the way you played it in terms of like when Gerpiar was taken out. You're like, I would have to be a fool to take him out after he called my name, and
Yes, and at that point in the game, it was totally fun because there were so many people. But if I were to do that at the end and let's say murder Trevon, well, that's exactly what Kuzi did with May. And
right.
at that point, it's too late. You can't do that then.
And did you know going into I can't remember if it was on the show. Did you know going into it that if she murdered May, that was going to point the finger squarely at her?
I think we both knew that, but I think she was willing to put herself in the hot seat. I didn't actually push it on her. There was other players we could have murdered as well. But and unfortunately, it didn't work out for her at that point in the game.
So, how did you prepare for the show overall? Obviously, magicians are known for studying and practicing. And, did you, I have to figure you at least watched some, if not all, of the English language seasons. Did you do that? And did you do anything else?
Yeah, so this was so last minute for me. I think they gave me the go ahead. Hey, Mike, you're going to come on this show. It was literally like 2 weeks beforehand, and I knew nothing about the show. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I better watch this if I'm going on it. Um, so I watched the US version and the UK version. To be honest with you, it was more just to see what the challenges were like, see if I would be able to handle this. I didn't realize the intensity of the psychological aspect of it. And I don't know if you can really prepare yourself for that until you're in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when Gerpiar called my name out that first time at the round table, I was so caught off guard. I really tensed up. I got nervous about the whole thing. But I think that was a wake up call for me that, yes, people will call your name out and you have to be able to keep your cool, stay calm, and just diffuse the situation.
Yeah. And that was such a bad move for Gerpiar, not just because it alerted you, but because your name hadn't come up. And I guess people hadn't yet learned you don't just throw out random names at the round table yet.
That's right. He was right, but I mean, he did it at the wrong time. And what can I say? And he was a guy I got along with really well in there. He was so great, and so it seemed like the right move for me to murder him after that.
Now, are you a reality TV fan or watcher in general? Were you familiar with people like Kevin and Kuzi?
I am not. In fact, I don't watch any reality television. So this was all new to me. When everyone came in there, I didn't know who anyone was. I didn't know, what's Big Brother. I've heard the name before, but so this was not a threat to me. Everyone seemed to be, we were just, a bunch of people playing a game together.
So you didn't know Big Brother or any reality TV. You hadn't seen the trailers. How did you end up on the show?
You know what? I think they wanted a magician. I think that was the main thing. They thought it would be a good role for this kind of show. And I guess that's how they contacted me to be a part of it.
Obviously, it's a good thing they did. So
yeah, honestly, a life-changing experience. It was a thrill. It was such an honor. And I think we truly built some, lifelong friendships as a part of being on this show. So I'm very happy. Last night we got to all watch the show together in Toronto, which was really nice to see everyone again. And we played the game of a lifetime, really.
So no hard feelings from Leroy and Gerline?
Not at all. No, we know we came in here to have fun, have an experience together, and ultimately one person had to win, and it's just the way the cards unfolded.
All right. Well, is there anything else that I haven't even asked you that you can use your magic to pull out of my mind to
it's funny, I've been listening to your podcasts over the past while now, and they've been so entertaining, and it's interesting to see the way other people perceived how I was playing the game, because I don't think a lot of people, they certainly thought I was the underdog and it would be difficult for me to get out of any of the situations that I was in. But I think that's what made this show interesting. The fact that I guess anything is possible.
Yeah. And I'm glad you enjoyed the podcast. We have a lot of fun with them, and trying to figure out from week to week what was going to happen. I was definitely rooting for you for a long time there. So it was good to see you able to pull this rabbit out of the hat.
I love it, David. Thank you so much. It was so nice actually talking to you. And yeah, thank you again for having me.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks again to Mike, and congratulations once again to him. If you want to reach out to let me know what you think, I'm all over social media and reality TV podcasting. I podcast about U.S. Survivor on the Rob Has a Podcast Network, with the name of the show being Why Blank Lost. And of course, I podcast here with Matthew about Survivor UK as we look at it from our two different viewpoints. We're also going to try to get some more Traitors Canada interviews, so watch for those. You can find all my various accounts through my Linktree at linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE. Or you can find me on most text-based social media like Twitter and Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg. And on the video platforms, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram is at David Bloomberg TV. Speaking of TikTok, I post at least 3, sometimes 4 or more reality TV short videos on those sites every day. I posted a congratulatory one where I dressed up in full gear with props for Mike. And also, of course, there are shows like U.S. Survivor, Survivor UK, Squid Game, House of Villains. And of course, there'll be a few more Traitors Canada videos there. Also, you should make sure to check out the accounts for this podcast overall. You can find us on Instagram as at the Traitors Podcast, on Twitter as at the Traitors Pod, and you can email the Traitors Podcast at gmail.com. And if you'd like to help support the costs of publishing this podcast, you could drop Matthew a few bucks at coffee.com. That's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. As I said, we are planning to have some more Traitors Canada interviews in the future, so watch for those. Thanks.